Welcome into Extra Points, our black and gold edition. It's our Steelers game preview. We got Brian Batko from the Pittsburgh Post Gazette hopping in with us. Brian, we appreciate you joining us. Steelers coming off the bye. Cleveland Browns. Ben Roethlisberger saying some smack already. What's your early take on this matchup?
Well, I think if anybody can talk a little junk, Andrew, and thanks for having me, it's probably Ben. I mean, he owned the Browns, much like Aaron Rodgers owned the Bears in his career with the Packers. If I'm not mistaken, last time the Steelers actually swept the Browns in a season was Ben's final year, and he went out on top in his last home game at Xtra Stadium, beating the Browns. Long run by Najee Harris in that one to seal it. So, yeah, I mean, this is a game every year that Ben is licking his chops, and he just has to hope that the Steelers back him up. And by and large at home, they've run into some trouble with the Browns on the road in Cleveland, difficult place to play. But I think Xtra Stadium is going to be a tough place to play for a rookie quarterback and Dillon Gabriel making his first real NFL road start.
I know there's no real fear of this Cleveland offense, maybe beside Quinshon Judkins, but Cleveland's defense is legit. It is one of the better units in the league, and it certainly has Myles Garrett, which always leaves you concerned.
Yeah, it does. And I think the potential pitfall here for the Steelers would be if the Browns turn this into just a rock'em sock'em robots game, as Mike Tomlin likes to say. It could get, if it's an ugly game, I think that generally plays into the hands of the lesser talented team, especially if they've got as big of a gap in quarterback experience as this one is between Aaron Rodgers and Dillon Gabriel. And just, I mean, even the momentum and the trajectory of these two teams, you've got one in the Steelers that's riding high, sitting atop the AFC North, coming off two consecutive thrilling victories, and then the Browns, who lose to the Vikings on a last-second touchdown catch in London, trade away Joe Flacco. That locker room is just always in flux. There's no reason why the Steelers should be upset in this game unless some schematic answers are up the sleeves of the Browns, and I don't put that past them with the kind of loaded defense that they've got. And you never know what Kevin Stefanski is going to be able to throw in there wrinkle-wise offensively to help out his quarterback, much like he's done in the past against the Steelers.
One of the key players on the Steelers to keep an eye on, Brian, is Broderick Jones. He gave up 4 sacks between the first 2 games of the season, hasn't given up any over the past 2 games here. Steelers head coach Mike Tomlin kind of had the quote of the press conference on Tuesday when he said Broderick's not a dummy. He knows who he's going to be up against. How do you think Broderick's going to do against Myles Garrett?
Honestly, Riley, I think it's going to be a bit of a struggle. I think he's going to need somebody helping him out on his left, whether that's Darnell Washington at tight end or Spencer Anderson as an extra tackle eligible lineman. So I think asking him to beat Myles Garrett one-on-one on an island, I don't know if he's ready for that. And I don't know if he'll ever be ready for that, which is tough to say for a first-round pick who, Mike Tomlin, makes no bones about it, always says they draft guys to help beat the Ravens, Bengals, and the Browns. And there's nobody that you game plan for more individually than Myles Garrett on your schedule every year when it comes to the defensive side of the ball. Aaron Rodgers was talking about that on Wednesday after practice, that, the Steelers have a guy like that in TJ Watt, but we know how difficult it is for teams to block him one-on-one. So he's always getting those double teams, those chips from running backs and tight ends. And I think the Steelers are going to try to employ a lot of that for Broderick Jones, utilize the quick passing game to try to keep the Browns at bay. And, it's still easier said than done. I feel like Myles Garrett has wrecked some of these matchups in the past, and you just don't want that to happen Sunday now that you've got an Aaron Rodgers who is not as spry as he once was.
You talked about that package with Spencer Anderson there and Darnell Washington. It worked really well for the Steelers in that Vikings game where they were able to rush for 130 yards. How much do you think the Steelers are going to use that package, especially against a Browns team that has been one of the best in the NFL in stopping the run this season?
Yeah, I think they're going to still have that in there, but I also think this is a week that, as much as Mike Tomlin is saying that it potentially won't happen, Jonnu Smith and Pat Freiermuth taking advantage of some mismatches over the middle. Maybe they get that going here in week 6 against the Browns. So I think it's largely just going to be based on the flow of the game, what's working against the Browns, what isn't, how much help do they need against Garrett. So, and also, I mean, so much is determined by the script. If the Steelers get up early, yeah, maybe you're trying to establish the run and, limit the possessions and get out of there with a divisional win. If for whatever reason the Steelers fall down early, Browns spring a big play on offense, special teams, whatever, then they might not be able to just sit back and try to impose their will. So it's not going to be as easy without Calvin Austin. I certainly don't anticipate him playing, but George Pickens is somebody who always had a lot of chippy moments with the Browns. We'll see if DK Metcalf brings that same feistiness to this matchup in a secondary that does have a lot of talent out there, starting with Denzel Ward.
The top priority of this bye week was to get healthy. It seems like the Steelers have done that to some extent. It's good news that it looks like Joey Porter Jr., maybe even Alex Highsmith, both on track to return. But the other, I think, main priority was they got to find an identity on offense. Where do you think this team will shift and look like coming out of this bye? Because through 4 games, it's really hard to put a finger on who this offense is and what they want to do.
Yeah, I mean, I think sometimes the identity stuff might be a little bit overrated or overstated. To me, it's more about the ceiling. I mean, what is the ultimate goal of your offense to be able to put points up no matter what a defense is doing to you, no matter what's working at any given time, no matter the weather. And I think for this Steelers offense to really be unlocked at every level, it's being able to run the ball, not just when you've got those jumbo packages in the game, but, having the offensive line open up some holes on their own, having Jalen Warren, Kenneth Gainwell, Caleb Johnson, if he's in there, making guys miss and sort of being their own blocker at times when you're outnumbered. But beyond that, it's the big playability of DK Metcalf, which has kept them afloat at times, especially early in that Vikings game at Croke Park. Then it's the intermediate routes to the tight ends. I mean, you've got arguably the best duo on paper in the NFL. It just hasn't come together yet. So I think if everything's clicking on all cylinders, this offense is very balanced to where they can beat you on the ground the way that they've imagined themselves with all the resources they've invested on the offensive line, but they can also have Aaron Rodgers dice you up from the pocket if he has the time, because I think he does have the playmakers. The second wide receiver spot, a little bit iffy with no Calvin Austin, but I think Scotty Miller and maybe even Roman Wilson get some opportunities in his stead for now.
Talking with Aaron Rodgers a lot over the past few weeks, he's always mentioned about how teams are just playing too high against them a ton, cover 2 against them a ton. The Browns do single high safety the most in the league out of any other team. How important is it for the Steelers to take advantage of that and maybe open up their offense? And I know you don't like to say the word, but find an identity here, maybe with some big play abilities from DK Metcalf and maybe Roman Wilson or Scotty Miller.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Browns, like any team, it would behoove them to not let DK Metcalf beat them. So whether that's, putting a safety over top, I don't know if they'll have Denzel Ward try to shadow him in this game because of the lack of depth at receiver for the Steelers, at least in theory. To me, it's going to be an issue where unless some of those other guys in the passing game, whether that is receivers beyond DK or the tight ends, start getting separation and start creating mismatches, then teams will be able to try to take DK Metcalf away. And, credit to Arthur Smith for even scheming him open on that slant against the Vikings that he then went and did the rest and did DK Metcalf type things to make a routine play, a fantastic one. But it's not always going to be that simple, especially when you run into some of the better defenses, some of the better defensive minds in the league. Jim Schwartz, I don't think he's going to let DK Metcalf beat them. If you're the Steelers, you're going to need to have other guys step up. So, I mean, that to me is going to be the other sort of aspect of getting this offense to where they ideally want it to be, where it can hang with the Chiefs and Bills of the AFC. It's where you're threatening teams beyond just number 4, and then number 4 has a lot more time and space to do the damage that we know he can do once he gets the ball in his hands, or if he gets a contested catch opportunity downfield.
Jim Schwartz's defense is always some of the best in the NFL. Let's take our first break. When we come back, we'll have more from Brian Batko from the Pittsburgh Post Gazette. You're watching Extra Points. Back here on Extra Points, our black and gold edition. Our guest is Brian Batko of the Pittsburgh Post Gazette. You can hear more from Brian during Black and Gold today. Check your local listings for that program. Riley, you had a question here to start this off.
Yeah, before the break, Brian was talking about having guys in the passing game step up other than DK Metcalf. And the one guy that everybody was talking a lot about this past offseason was Roman Wilson. But so far, he's been pretty non-existent in the Steelers' offense over the first 4 games of the season. Brian, what's the confidence level like? Does this team have any faith in Roman Wilson to step up and make an impact at all in the offense?
I haven't seen it yet. I mean, I think until I do, I'm just going to have to assume that he hasn't positioned himself just yet to take advantage of these increased opportunities. I mean, last year, going back to his rookie season, which obviously got off to a difficult start with the high ankle sprain in training camp, and he struggled to come back from that, and he got on the field for a few reps in the Raiders game. But coming out of that one, he dealt with another injury. He ends up on IR. It just didn't seem like they were ever really eager to work him into the equation. And this year has been much the same, albeit now that he has a clean bill of health. So that's never ideal for a third rounder who a lot was expected out of, especially in this transitional period right now for the offense. So many core pieces have been changed over. I think they wanted him to be a bigger piece than he's been thus far, but he just can't seem to carve out a role. If there were ever a time, you'd think it would be now with Calvin Austin likely to miss a game or two at least. So we'll see. I know that Roman Wilson, he made a splash or two in the preseason. I felt like the arrow was pointing up for him, but it's kind of gone right back to forgotten man status now that we're in the regular season.
I guess playing the hypothetical game too, if Wilson's not able to step up and Calvin Austin has to miss more time than what was originally expected, could you see the team making a move? And I'm not talking about like a Chris Olave move or say like an AJ Brown move, but something like an Allen Lazard move where you have a guy that's already very familiar with Aaron Rodgers.
Allen Lazard, are we still doing this?
He's missed the last 2 games for the Jets.
Yeah, I don't think he's very good anymore. I think he's I think he's really not much of an upgrade over the likes of, Ben Skoranek, Isaiah Hodgins on the practice squad. I mean, could they decide that, yes, the lack of production from the receivers beyond DK Metcalf combined now with yet another injury to Calvin Austin, that it is time to go out there and bring somebody else in from the outside? I wouldn't put anything past Omar Khan, but I think it's already been difficult enough to sort of spread the ball around and get everybody involved in this offense when you talk about the amount that they're running the ball, the amount that they're throwing the ball to Jaylen Warren and Kenneth Gainwell out of the backfield. Darnell Washington and Connor Hayward working themselves into the mix, and Jonnu Smith and Pat Freiermuth probably need more targets. So whoever you'd be bringing in here as another receiver, unless they really kind of take the lid off the defense and are getting so open that Aaron Rodgers can't not see him. First of all, they're playing catch up to try to get on the same page with Rodgers. And second of all, I don't know where they would even fall in the hierarchy or the pecking order behind the guys they've already got.
When you look at the way the Steelers team is constructed, I see a team that's built to be very, very physical. And in a lot of the ways, like the Eagles, just kind of grind you down. But we have yet to see that. I mean, you got 3 serviceable starting tight end type players, if we want to look at Darnell Washington that way. You've got a big physical wide receiver, and you've got 2 running backs who both run with power, and a Caleb Johnson who's a nice change of pace. But we haven't seen this kind of, let's just get in their face and grind them out for 60 minutes. Why is that? Because that feels perfect for Steelers brand football.
I just don't know that the offensive line's quite ready to do that. I think that they didn't have quite as much opportunity to gel in preseason because Isaac Seumalo was in and out so much. Troy Fautanu, obviously it was a lost rookie year for him with his knee injury. Broderick Jones has been trying to make that switch from the right to the left side, even though it's more comfortable, natural for him. We know he was going through some struggles in camp preseason and even early in the regular season. So they're not the biggest group up front. I look at everybody wants to sort of compare them to the Eagles, and I know they're the gold standard right now of run games with what they were able to do for Saquon Barkley last season en route to hoisting the Lombardi Trophy. That unit is so much bigger and I think more physically imposing than the Steelers, who have a little bit, quicker. They've sort of invested more in athletic guys like Zach Frazier, the two tackles that I mentioned. Even Mason McCormick was a really good athletic tester coming out of college. So I think it's more about technique and nastiness with them. I just don't know yet if they have the ability to really blow guys off the ball. Potentially, if Isaac Seumalo is replaced next year by a big, strong, second or third round guard on the interior, I'll be singing a different tune. But I'm not really sure that that's their DNA as an O-line.
I want to flip to the defensive side of the ball, Brian. Alex Highsmith spoke on Monday, made it sound like he's going to play in this game against Cleveland here. How do you think the Steelers are going to deploy their edge rushers? Because Nick Herbig's been playing really well in his absence this season.
Yeah, he has, and it's going to be really difficult to keep him off the field. Obviously, I think it's a good problem to have though, because now you're going to be able to rotate those three. Jack Sawyer, good job. You did your part while you were needed, but you can probably go back to focusing on special teams for the most part now, because as long as those three are healthy, I think you want two of them out there at all times, and it puts a lot of stress on the opposing offensive line. And then, if you feel like, hey, we're not really getting the interior push that we want from Cam Hayward, Keanu Benton, Derek Harmon, Y.A. Black, Daniel Ekuale, then you have the ability to mix in that curveball of putting all three outside linebackers out there. Maybe they all come and you blitz. Maybe TJ Watt, Nick Herbig drops in coverage. Maybe Alex Highsmith drops in coverage. He's got a pick six in his career, as I recall. So yeah, I mean it's a really good problem to have all three of those guys healthy. And you kind of worry about the Herbig Highsmith dynamic down the line after the season when it comes to potentially paying one or both of those guys. But for right now, it gives you, I think, one of the deepest edge rushing groups in the NFL.
I want to ask one more quick question before we head to break, and I want to go back to talking about the Cleveland Browns. One of the things about this Browns team is they're just so young. It's just a young team from top to bottom, both sides of the ball. Quinshon Judkins looked like he could be a real problem in this NFL for a long time. Who stands out of that kind of young group to you?
I'm not a big Dylan Gabriel believer, to be honest. I was dumbfounded when they picked him at the end of night
You
two
and
of the
everyone
draft.
else.
I just don't think. I mean, I guess I suppose I see what they see in him, but I just don't think he's ever really going to hold up in the biggest games in the AFC North and the brand of football that's played here. Hey, maybe by the time the Browns have their dome installed, Dylan Gabriel will be firmly entrenched as the starter. But otherwise, I really liked their draft. I think there's always going to be the what if in Cleveland of trading away from Travis Hunter. But in the end, I didn't think that was a bad move for them to, get extra draft capital, still end up with Mason Graham, interior pass rusher out of Michigan, who I think really fits what they try to do defensively. And yeah, Carson Schlesinger, inside linebacker they took at the top of round 2, is already impressing folks there. And Quinshon Judkins, he's had off the field issues already since he entered the league, but when he's on the field, he's a really, really good running back. And that none of that even stopped them from signing Isaiah Bond too, out of Texas, who didn't even get drafted because of some really serious and heinous allegations against him. Now all of a sudden he's in the lineup and he's giving them another speed threat as a rookie wide receiver. So yeah, I know Browns fans are they're always waiting for the other shoe to drop, but they're pretty optimistic about this rookie class thus far.
He forgot Harold Fanning Jr. as well. But Brian, can you say Carson Schlesinger 3 times fast?
I forgot Shedeur Sanders too.
Yeah, you did.
But yes,
Yeah.
Carson Schlesinger. Both of these teams have an inside linebacker named Carson. How about that?
Yeah, incredible. And rookies, too.
From a former Pac-12 team turned Big Ten team.
Look at the comparisons. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back. Just about 5 minutes left here with Brian Batko from the Pittsburgh Post Gazette. You can follow him on social media, full of great content over there at the Post Gazette. Is Batko is one of the best on the beat. Brian, we look at this AFC North picture, and I'm telling you, if you said to me that the Steelers were going to be the only team with a winning record coming out of the bye, I'd have said you're crazy, because Joe Burrow and the Bengals were supposed to be great. The Ravens were supposed to be great with Lamar Jackson. Now the Ravens have like $160 million in injuries. Burrow is out. Like, what a weird state of AFC North we're in.
It is. I was already a little skeptical of the Bengals, even with Burrow healthy, because of their defense. And now you adjust the calculus first to Jake Browning, who I know Jake Browning sort of had like he was sort of an underground favorite of some NFL people, but I just didn't see it with him. And it seems like he's turned back into a pumpkin in those orange helmets. But now Joe Flacco is, ready to roll, ready for prime time. He's starting this week against the Packers, according to Zach Taylor. So, man, that is a fascinating subplot here in the division. The Bengals, I guess I would say, yeah, intriguing with this Flacco experiment. The Browns, I guess I would say hilarious is how I would describe them. And the Ravens are just kind of sad what's happening to them, because obviously when they're right, they're not fun for the Steelers to play against, but they're very fun to watch just as a football fan. And the downgrade from Lamar Jackson to Cooper Rush in entertainment value and competitiveness is very, very unfortunate.
So far this season, not just the AFC North has shown its warts, but pretty much the whole AFC in general. I mean, Kansas City has a below 500 record. We just saw the Bills lost to the New England Patriots, a team that the Steelers beat. Brian, is the AFC kind of wide open for the taking this year?
Yeah, I don't know if I'd go that far, Riley. I mean, I think record-wise, yeah. I mean, the Steelers are, other than the Bills, they are off to the best start. You got to love seeing the early hole that the Chiefs and especially the Ravens are in. I'm not really totally sold on the Jaguars or the Colts keeping up this torrid pace. So, and I think the AFC West is so difficult that those teams are going to cannibalize each other a decent amount, other than, well, the Raiders. But I still feel like when push comes to shove, all the chips are down. Bills and Chiefs to me are sort of a cut above everybody else. Now, we'll see if that holds. That more injuries can happen. The Steelers could, make an acquisition that puts them in a higher tier. They could
Alan Lazard, right?
Yeah.
Alan Lazard?
Someone other than Alan Lazard, but they could continue to do some of the things we talked about in the first couple segments and make me feel a little bit better about their ultimate upside. But at least for now, I still think the Chiefs and the Bills are kind of in a class of their own. The Chiefs just have to get back to their sort of voodoo magic ways, and I tend to think they will.
Rumor has it might be Deebo Samuel too, but who knows? I know the AFC is your expertise here, but the NFC also seems very almost wide open, and there doesn't feel like a team right now in the NFL that has this on lock. Is it maybe the Detroit Lions are the closest thing to that?
Yeah, and I still I don't know if the Detroit Lions having Jared Goff as their quarterback, if I would really ever see them going all the way.
That's
I
harsh.
almost just I can't picture it, and I think the lack of mobility for him could eventually prove to be an issue. So I still think they're going to be one of the best regular season teams. Still would not want to have to play them in the postseason. The Eagles, I know they always seem to be going through some sort of internal strife, but their roster is so stacked that I'd be shocked if they aren't right there punching at the end. The Packers and the Vikings, in the NFC North, especially if the Vikings can get things figured out at quarterback, whether that's Carson Wentz, maybe less likely JJ McCarthy, but they've still got a really good coaching staff. And then I'll say this much: Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Baker Mayfield, it feels like he's having a moment, guys. So
He sure does.
if there were ever a time for him to really catch fire and go all the way, this could be the year, with the NFC shaping up the way that it is for him to do that.
Real quick, about 5 seconds. Do you have a prediction on this game?
Steelers Browns?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to go Steelers 21, Browns 10. I think it could be one of those rare Steelers games that they win somewhat comfortably.
It's Steelers and Browns Sunday afternoon in Pittsburgh. He's Brian Batko. Thanks for watching.